Hi everyone, welcome to this live class. Today we'll be exploring forearm balance and a different variation of forearm balance where it's a little asymmetrical. And we can explore all the preparations for this without going upside down. So you could do this all from like a downward facing dog, just letting someone in. So for this class, if you have a yoga brick, go ahead and grab that. So if you don't have one, you could always improvise with a hardcover book or something to put in between your hands like this. And it's always nice to have a blanket. And if you want to hop upside down, and the wall would give you more of a sense of safety if it's behind you than be near a wall. So I thought we'd start out with a little breath practice, but we're going to do that on our back. So let's lie down, and that's where we will also explore some of our core work. So you can lie down on your back and begin by letting your feet plant underneath your knees and taking a few breaths into your back body, and start to simply be aware of your body and your breath. You might close your eyes and take a few beats, a few moments to be aware of your body and your breath. Simple awareness, checking in with what's going on today. And then if it supports you, the invitation is to lengthen your breath and deepen it a little bit. Maybe even make a sound to it. Finding your own rhythm. Maybe you also feel points of contact pressing into the ground. And then we'll start to bring some tone into the front of the body. So let's take the hands and interlock them behind the back of the head and draw the knees in towards the chest. And we'll curl everything into a little ball. You might exhale when you do that, and then inhale, open up and tap your toes to the ground and look up. Exhale, curl everything into a little ball, little or a lot. And then open up, arch your back, look up, tap your toes to the ground. Let's try this maybe with our legs a little straighter. You can always do it with your legs bent, or as you curl in, you might explore straightening your legs a little bit more and rolling your pelvis up off the floor. Let's do this for about 5 more times. That's an option. So 5. Being aware of your breath. 4. 3. Noticing the movement in your spine, whichever variation you're choosing. 2. And 1. Letting your head come back down to the floor. Take a moment's pause. And then hands behind the back of the neck again. Curl your head up and see if you can press your pelvis down into the floor and bring your abdomen a little down on your exhalation. Let's take an inhale there, and then exhale, straighten out your right leg and take a breath, keeping your abdomen as close to the floor as you can. You might tighten your kneecap. Maybe you even curl your shoulder blades off the floor. And then lower your right leg, keep your head up if you can, and then straighten your left leg and see if you can keep your lower abdomen down and your lower back close to the floor. You might tighten your kneecap here. Curl your shoulder blades a little more off the floor. Take a breath and lower down. So do one more time both sides. You can lower down and rest if you need to. All of these options are up to you, how far you take them. So right leg up, see if you can flatten your low ribs down to the floor. Maybe curl your shoulder blades up off the floor. And then left leg, engage your leg. Take a breath, maybe you curl the bottom tips of your shoulder blades off. You might lower down. And then let's try both legs. At about a 45 degree, take a breath. Lower your feet down and slowly lower your head to the ground. And you can let your feet, your knees, wobble side to side. Maybe doing that with your breath. And then bring your knees more to point up. Press into your feet and lift up into a bridge. So now we're gonna tone the back side of the body. See if you can give a little posterior tip to your pelvis. So it's like you're tucking your tail in between your legs a little. You don't need to overdo that, but find a little bit of that. And then start to march. So come up onto one toe, tippy toe, and lower down, and then the other tippy toe and lower down. So you can do this at your own pace. And notice one hip's gonna elevate a little more than the other. And see if you can drive your pelvis up from the base of your pelvis, from the backside, from the lower seat muscles and the upper hamstrings. Exploring that. And then let's stay lifted through the pelvis if you can, and walk your feet out so that your toes turn up. So your toes turn up and just your heels kind of driving into the mat. And then see if you can lift your pelvis with that little posterior tip from the base of the glutes and the top of the hamstrings. And take a breath there. I'm just lightly resting my hands on my hips, and I might even be able to see my ribs and hips and see if they're relatively level. Take a breath. If you really want to, you could try lifting one heel off, dropping it down, and I'm actually pressing with my upper arms here, lifting the other heel off and pressing it down, and seeing if you can do that with a little bit of that tail tuck, just a tad. Take a breath there, lift the hips a little higher, and then roll on down. Draw the knees in towards the chest. Wobble a little side to side. And then either rock and roll right up, or you can turn to the side and come on up onto your hands and your knees. And make sure you have your block or your hardcover book near you. So I'm gonna put that down. Start to tuck your toes and shift forwards into your hands so that you're coming over the wrist line a little. And you might press your arms towards straight as you do this. Then let's shift forwards, tuck the toes, and lift the hips up and back to downward facing dog. And you can again shift side to side. I used the word marching, which might be a good word for some folks, but you could think about padding like an animal, your feet side to side. Maybe better than marching. And then you can walk your feet towards your hands. Here, inhale halfway up, get long through your spine. And you might bend your knees and fold forwards over your legs. Let's do that 2 more times. So inhale, find that halfway lift. And exhale and fold in. 1 more time. The inhale might bring you up. And exhale, fold into your forward fold. Let's take a couple breaths. And again, you might come back to awareness of your breath. And if it's useful, you might do that regulation part where you find the points of contact with the ground and you slow your breath down. An option is to also deepen your breath, make it a little stronger. And then take your arms out to the sides and come all the way up to standing. You can reach up and notice the tone in the front and the back of the body with your arms up over your head. Does your front body sag forwards a little bit? Might feel good. You can do that. Do you tend to curl your pelvis under? And can you find an evenness, a little more of an evenness through the front and the back of your body? Take a breath there. And then we'll exhale, hinge forwards at the hips, and fold forwards. Fingertips to the ground. Let's take our right foot back into a long lunge, and you can wiggle it back and then fall into your right hand. Your right hand could also come onto your block if you like, and take your left hand behind your head. So we'll do this 3 times. We're gonna exhale, curl our left elbow towards our right elbow. And then on the inhale, open up into a twist, and try not to pop your right shoulder forward. So keep it in the center of the joint. We'll do that 2 more times. Exhale, curl in. See if you can strengthen your back leg. And keep your right shoulder in the center of the joint as you twist through your spine. Exhale, curl in, last one. And then inhale, come up. Keep the shoulder from popping forwards and lift your left arm up into the air. Now notice if your hips have shifted to the left, would it be useful for you to shift your right hip to the right? And how would that affect your twist? And explore breath here. Back leg nice and strong. Maybe even tighten the kneecap of the back leg. And if it helps you feel clarity, make long straight lines through the body, even though your body doesn't have straight lines. Project out from the center. Then we'll take our left arm down. Feel strong in the back leg. Grab your prop and come all the way up to a high lunge. So you're welcome to bend your back leg to see if you can find a neutral pelvis. So maybe it's tipped really far forwards or it's tucked under, and see if you can find it relatively in the middle of those two extremes. Pull your blocker book apart and take it up over your head. And then see if you can find that tone through the front and back body, lifting kind of more evenly up, exploring that, and bending your elbows, taking the block or the book behind your head. Squeeze your elbows in and explore that. And then see if you can lift up without projecting your front ribs forwards. So there's that tone in the front, that length in the back for a breath. Maybe try to look up a little here. And then let that block come up over your head. Explore straightening your arms. And with your hips relatively steady, side bend over to the right. And then come into the center and side bend a little over to the left. And come into the center. Sweep that block behind your back. And then pull it apart, or your book. Pull it apart and see if you can roll your shoulders up, back, and down. And pulse your arms up and back behind you. And for many of us, we're gonna wanna come into more of a back bend. See if you can resist the back bend and pulse for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Let's take that block in front of us and take it to the floor. Frame the block with your index finger and your thumb, and let your left leg come back and up into a three-legged dog. Take a breath there. See if you can explore that evenness of tone through the front and back of your body, like you're a nice full cylinder. And then take your left knee, as you're ready, underneath your navel and place it down. Turn your back foot on a wide angle and lift up into a balancy side plank variation. Remember that bottom shoulder. Can you keep it into the center of the joint as you lift your top arm up? And also that front to back tone, maybe even side to side. And then exhale, as you're ready, right hand down. Right knee underneath you so you're on all fours, framing that block, and let your elbows come to the ground. Now, see if you can let your head go and lift the space in between your shoulder blades. So you feel a little puff in between your shoulder blades, and you're pressing strongly into your forearms, the base. Can stay here or tuck your toes and walk yourself into a downward facing dog. Press down strongly through your forearms. So explore. You can sink into your shoulders like you're plugging your upper arms into the socket, or you can push away. And there's two extremes there, sinking in and pushing away, almost like there's a little puff up of your armpits. Try to stay with the puff up of your armpits, and then notice if your tail's really tucked here. Is it possible to bend your knees maybe and lift your tail a little, not to overdo it, but so you feel a little longer in your low back? And then can you draw the lower abdomen in and feel strong in the front of the core? Maybe you walk your feet in a little bit and press more down through your forearms. And then walk back through your feet, let your knees come to the floor, and we're gonna switch our hand position so that the inner palms face each other. So on the block, or if you're on a book, it's gonna be a little more challenging to find that grip, but do it more with the pinky side of your hand. Then again, puff the upper back, drop the head, tuck the toes, and come into either a bent knee or a straight-legged down dog like this. Slice down through your outer wrists and explore that sagging into the shoulders, plugging the arm bones in. Might feel good, it's not wrong, but for your inversion, let's try to push away so there's a bit of a puff up of the armpits. Maybe walk your feet in a little bit, bend your knees if you need to, and explore. Are you really tucking your tail under, or can you lift it a little? And then on your exhale, draw your core, the front of your abdomen mostly, in a little so you feel connected through that front body. And then walk your feet back and lower down. Okay, give yourself a little break by shifting into your heels or your hips towards your heels. And then let's try thumbs out with your fingers curled in like a soft fist. Now see if you can get your thumbs to touch the floor or at least roll in that direction. Let your head go, puff your upper back, tuck your toes, and explore staying on your knees or coming up into your down dog. And then again, it's a sag and a lift, maybe the middle of those two extremes, finding neutral pelvis and the front of the abdomen a little bit drawn in. Try to look right in between your elbows if you can. It'll support you from not overarching your neck. Walk back, lower down, and we'll release that. You can take the block out to the side, step back into downward facing dog. Notice how it feels in your arms. Either step, hop, however you'd like to. Top of the mat, lengthen out here, and fold. Arms out and up, reach the top. Again, explore that tube-like sensation through your torso. Sometimes I think it's like a keg instead of a six-pack. And lower your arms back down to the sides. Let's try that whole thing on the other side. So arms out and up, forward fold. Fingertips to the floor, left foot back into that long lunge. Wiggle it back, strengthen your back leg. Fall into your left hand, take your right hand behind the back of your head. Exhale and curl your right elbow towards your left. And then on your inhale, keep your left shoulder centered as you reach up into a twist. Second time, mind in the left shoulder. Third time, at your own time with your own breath. On the third one, let your right arm reach up any amount and notice if your hips have shifted to the right and if it would be useful to let your left hip shift to the left as you explore this twist. Take a breath there. Right hand down to the ground. Get strong in your back leg. Grab a hold of your prop. Come all the way up. Explore a little more neutral in your pelvis. That tone front to back. Grab a hold of your block and take it up over your head. Bend your elbows and take the block or the book behind your head. Now explore if you're thrusting the ribs forwards a bit, or can you draw them back and up a little as you sink into your legs. Maybe try to look up a little and then let your block reach up over your head. And with your hips fairly steady, go a little right, come into the center. Go a little left in a side bend, come into the center, and then take your hands behind you. And you can pull the block apart, roll your shoulders up, back and down. Minimize the back bend and pulse your arms up behind you for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a breath there and then let your block come out in front and press it down to the floor. Frame your block with your hands, your index finger and your thumb. And as you're ready, step your right leg back into a 3-legged dog. And take a breath there. Notice your shoulders there. And then we'll take our right knee underneath us as you're ready, underneath your navel. Take your back foot on a wide angle and open up into a side plank. Notice that bottom shoulder. Can you move it into the center of the joint and also push the ground away? Front and back of the pelvis, side to side, finding your cylinder of support through your core as much as you can. And then we'll lower down our left hand, we'll lower down our left knee onto all fours, Now we know it a little more, we can go through it a little quicker. So we're gonna frame our prop with our index finger and thumb. Forearms relatively parallel. Press down through your foundation, puff your upper back, let your head hang. Tuck your toes and either hover your knees or come into a downward facing dog. And here you might get that armpit puff and lift one leg up and back behind you. And then switch, lift the other leg up and back behind you, maintaining a strong pressure through your arms. I know there's nothing casual about this. It's quite difficult. Lower and come down. Take rests as you need to. We'll go for the next hand variation, holding the block or the book and slicing the outer palm down the ulnar side of the hand or the wrist. Puffing the shoulders, head hangs, either hovering the knees or down dog, maybe walking in, finding that press away, that spaciousness in the shoulder, and then maybe one leg up. Explore, if it helps you to explore long, clear lines of press. Projecting out from center, you can do that. And then your left leg up. All of these are optional, so all equal value options. Resting is an equal value option here. And then exhale as you're ready. Come on down. We'll explore turning our thumbs out and squeezing into center with our outer wrists and seeing if we can turn the thumbs down to the floor, puff the upper back, let the head hang. Find those two extremes and how much is useful for you to push and puff the armpits. Maybe walking in, letting one leg come up, projecting through long, clean lines. Some of you might be coming up into a forearm balance, each one here. And you'll know who you are. And then coming on down as you're ready, lowering down. And let's take our block or whatever you have. Sit back towards your heels if you can and let your head drop down onto the block. Or maybe your hips are a little lifted there. And take a breath. All right, so we'll try one more hand variation that will make it a little more asymmetrical. So from here, we're gonna take our right hand to frame the block, or you can actually start with both. Frame the block, and then let your left hand come so that the center of your palm is about in line with your right elbow. So find that on all fours, and then get a sense that you're squeezing your elbows into center. So there's a little engagement at the front of the chest, and then you'll feel that puff through your upper back and your head hangs. So you can tuck your toes and come up a little, like hover the knees, or come up a lot like a downward facing dog, and notice the tendency to want to shift side to side. And can you keep your hips a little more centered and keep your back a little more centered, those elbows squeezing in. And then lower back down, and we'll try the other side. So in between those, you might want to roll out through your shoulders, depending if you have any mischief going on in your upper body. So this is quite demanding on the shoulders. So you can start with your hands framing the block, left forearm relatively parallel, and center of the right palm about in line with your right elbow. Squeeze in, get that little puff in your upper back, the width between your shoulder blades. Let your head hang, and either explore hovering the knees or coming towards down dog and being aware of that shift side to side. Little engagement at the front of the chest. Take a breath there. Push down, and then slowly lower back down to the floor. Beautiful. Let's take a moment to press back into the down dog and let our right leg come up. Find a nice long line there. And then let our right knee come right underneath us. Turn the back foot onto an angle and see if you can either put your knee down or hover it, coming into a side plank. And see if you can make a figure eight with your knee, like you're drawing a figure eight on the ground. Can you keep your right shoulder back? Left hand back, let's reach it back into a three-legged dog and switch sides. Have a little fun with this. Left leg up and back. Bring it underneath you. Maybe you hover it or drop it down. Right foot on a wide angle. And you might draw a figure eight if you're floating your knee, or explore keeping it down. And then right arm down, left leg up into your three-legged dog. And exhale, come down onto your knees. Okay, so if you haven't already been inverting and kicking up, this might be a chance to come near a wall. So imagine that there's a wall right behind my feet. About like a shin distance away is a good distance to be. So you might switch so that you're there. Then you can use your block or not, optional. We'll try a couple of these inversions with the support of the wall behind us, but we'll get that foundation set up before we go up. So forearms relatively parallel, that puff in the upper back, head hangs, and then you can go through to the dolphin shape where you're in the downward facing dog, exploring that armpit puff and the pelvic movement and the front of the abdomen support. If you want, and only if you want, you might tiptoe forwards, keep that pressure, one leg up into the air, and then shift forward. So there's a couple of options here. You might shift so that you kind of press up. You might do a little hop to take your right heel in towards your seat so that you're still connected to the front of your body. And some of you might come up, maybe some of you even find the wall. But think about that tone from front to back. And it might take years to find, a bit straighter of a line. Often we start off in a little back bend. That's great. And then you might come on down. So you'll notice there's one leg that's a little more excited to go up first. And if you'd like to get out of your own habits, then you might switch your leg to the more awkward leg next one. So option here to try a different clasp through the hands. So you might do this by squeezing your block this way. It will apply a little more external rotation to your upper arm. And if you're having a hard time with this, you can also try a headstand and have your head floating off the ground, right? So that's a perfectly great option to get a little bit more awareness of going upside down. It can calm your nervous system so you can actually put the pieces together. So this one will puff, let the head drop, maybe hover, maybe find that down dog, maybe exploring, sinking and puffing through the shoulders. How much is useful? The pelvis. Where's that neutral position? And then I'm gonna try my weird leg, and it could be a press or a hop. And if you're coming in with your knee bent, try to keep your knee as close into your body as you can. It'll help you stay connected to that balancing tone at the front of the abdomen. And then you might come up. Also, if you let your head hang a little more, it might support you to come into a little more of a straight line. And again, like I said, as you come down, nobody's really straight. We're all beautifully curved circles and spirals through our anatomy and our body. But it might help you with clarity to think about projecting out in long lines. Okay, you can rest. You can also option to come into like a beautiful twist if you like. Give your shoulders a break, or let's try this variation with the thumbs out and trying to roll those thumbs towards the floor and just see if it gives you more freedom in your shoulders. So find that, find the puff, head hangs, tuck the toes, maybe come up a little, maybe a lot. How is that tone from front to back? So the shoulders, the pelvis, and it's an exploration. So there's no right or wrong. And then choose which leg you'd like to lift, maybe a tip forwards, and exploring. I like to take my legs a little apart when I'm upside down and drive my tailbone up. And you can always come back to your breath. So you might be finding the wall with your feet, and then one leg at a time, come away from the wall to see if you can find your plumb line. Okay, last play here, the asymmetrical. So the asymmetrical one might mean that you lift one leg up and explore that, especially if you're feeling a little wobbly in the down dog. So let's try that. So we'll frame the block if you have it. Press down and then take our left hand in line with our right elbow. Let the head drop, puff the upper back. I kind of think about a flying squirrel here, like a wide upper back, wide shoulder blades. And then again, you might hover with that elbow squeeze to center. You might come up into your down dog, and the leg to go up here would be your left leg. So you can let that left leg come up and find those long lines. Maybe you find a clarity through squeezing in and pushing up. Okay, so lots of places to stop. Let's try the other side just for fun. And just know that wherever, and I'm gonna eliminate that word just, because this is so challenging. It's not simple. So I think just simplifies things. So know that all of these little movements, the little movements are sometimes more useful than the big movements for developing strength, stability, and integrity, or coming back to that sense of integrity that you already have. So we'll push down through, if you want to try the other side, right hand comes back in line with the left elbow, squeeze in, puff, let your head hang, tuck, and either hover the knees or come towards more of a down dog. How much of that puff and press away is useful for you? It's the right leg that comes up. So it's the bent elbow, it's the same leg, and finding maybe a little tip forwards. Maybe you are keeping that puff and lift through your shoulders. There might be a little tendency to twist your pelvis here, so that's okay. Notice it. See if you can come back to finding a little more symmetry between the two sides, which none of us will ever have. So you can explore that a little more maybe, and now we're all gonna enjoy that twist, if you like. So I'm gonna take the block, if you have a block right underneath my head, right underneath your head, and slide the right arm through and get your knees as close as you need to take your head onto the block. And you don't have to use a block for this either. My right palm is up and left hand pushing into the ground. And if you like, with that left hand, you might push to get a sense that you're rolling a little more onto the back of the head. And if you're dipping your pelvis forwards a lot, you could make the back ribs and the low back a little more buoyant and lift it up towards the ceiling. Some of you might even, here's an option, some of you might bend your bottom elbow, make a soft fist, and press your top hand on top of it. And with that pressure down, you can explore even lifting your bottom shoulder a little, rolling a bit more towards the back of the head, and exploring that twist. And you can make it as soft as you like, or sometimes if you're exploring fearlessness in your own self, it can be useful to find those long, clean, projecting lines. Not to say that's the only way to explore fearlessness, but it can feel nice to clear out by pressing out through long lines in the body. All right, we'll slowly come on out of that. Let's take the other side. So if you like, left arm underneath, palm facing up. You could use the block under your head or not. Maybe your right hand pushes to roll you towards the back of the head. And if you want, bend your left elbow, make a soft fist and press your right hand on top of it. And might take this opportunity to reorient towards your breathing. And you can stay there for as long as you like, or you might start to come back to neutral. And then let your legs come forward. So your version of a forward fold. I'm gonna walk my hips back. And this is something you could explore. You could kind of walk one leg back so it's staggered against your other one, and then walk the other leg back. It's almost like you're walking on your sit bones. And as you walk back, you'll be plugging that thigh bone back into the pelvis, and that might help you get a sense of tipping that pelvis forwards. And then you can come into your forward fold a little or a lot, and some folks like to put something underneath the hips, so that's always an option. You might stay upright. You might start to fold into wherever you can feel the stretch is useful for you. And we'll come back to that awareness and regulation practice. So find that space where you're bumping up against your edge of sensation. And first, the invitation is to notice what's happening. Notice where you feel. Notice your response to the feeling and sensation. You might close your eyes. And then if it's useful for you, you can go into the regulating practice, which you're tuning into what is working for you. Does it mean deepening your breath is going to increase your sense of ease and increase your sense of feeling safe or more safe? Or does it mean slowing down your breath? And my friend Sarah says, be your own nervous system whisperer. So there's something I'm exploring is what things can I do when I'm feeling a lot to make my presence bigger than the feeling so that I can deal with the feeling. Sometimes it's releasing body tension, feeling your points of contact in the ground. And you can stay here for as long as you like. I'm going to invite you to come on up and either go onto your back. We have 3 more minutes together, or sit. And I'm going to sit for today. Depends on how you're feeling. You can sit comfortably, you can lie down. You can keep moving if that feels better for you too. But I'm going to take this opportunity to sit, and if you're doing regulation, like doing manipulation of the breath and encouraging, releasing body tension, and maybe reminding yourself that you're bigger than the feeling that you're experiencing, you can stay with that. And then there's also an opportunity to come into an awareness practice where you're simply stepping back and noticing what's happening. You might close your eyes for this part. And just to give you an idea, we have like 2 more minutes, around 120 seconds, to either regulate or notice what's happening. And I should mention that like regulating doesn't mean that you stay calm all the time. My understanding of it is it means you can go through feeling the calmness, the anger, the frustration, the boredom, but you can have the flexibility to come back to feeling more at home in your body and feeling bigger than the feelings, so you can manage them a little better. Last couple of moments here. So you're so welcome to stay here for as long as you like, as long as you have time for. If you're lying down, you might stretch your body out and give yourself a big wake up stretch. And if you've been sitting, you might do the same thing. Take your arms up. How often do you take your arms over your head? Maybe give yourself a side stretch. I'm so grateful that you were here with me today. May you have peace.